We are at a really important scene for the book. This is the Piazza Beati Paoli, and we are at the church Santa Maria del Gesù. And this is where the Beati Paoli entered and met underneath an underground tunnel. I'm going to take you in for a quick peek of the church, which is no longer in use, so we're not being rude. You can see inside it's kind of dark, but I thought you might like a quick look. This incredible place. It's still so beautiful. Look at the color on the wall. You can tell from this, but it's a salmon, a very beautiful apricot. And here we go. And now I'm going to take you. Now, it's said that there is, I'm not allowed to go up there, but behind the altar is the mouth of one of the tunnels, hidden behind the altar. But I'm going to show you right now the way to go to the, here. Just go up this secret little street. It's called Via dei Orfani, Street of the Orphans. I'll show you. Vicolo degli Orfani. So Vicolo means little street, tiny little street. And you can see, you can imagine Manfredi coming here in the night and all of his people of the Beati Paoli with the Blessed of St. Paul meeting to avenge injustice and fight for justice. We can't know now where the entrance was because everything's bricked over, but it was along here that they would go enter in this secret side door. It would be the back of the church, and they would go down the tunnel and actually meet underground. And there are tunnels all underneath Palermo, as there are in Rome. It's so subterranean because there's so many different ages, but this is really where the Beati Paoli, would meet. Isn't this incredible? You can imagine all of these cloaked noblemen meeting at night in secret to avenge injustice. Amazing. Okay, so that was our little film. Let me explain to you and give you some background on what you're seeing. So as I said, you do a lot of research into Sicily and Palermo of the 1700s and the 1800s, and you just read and read and read. And it's so fascinating. That's one of the reasons this is such a great job, besides the fact you get to meet such wonderful readers as you. I mean, I know so many of you. So I'm reading this stuff about Palermo, and I come upon this true fact, which was that there was a sect. It was actually a secret society that arose in Palermo in, they think it's 1710 or 1720, which is before the novel takes place. By the way, we're talking about behind the scenes of loyalty, my novel of historical fiction, if you're just tuning in. And this is the research that I found. And it is this amazing that there is a secret society now. What's the purpose of the secret society? Well, I'll tell you. You know how we talked earlier about, since loyalty is about four characters and how their life happens against the rise of the mafia in Sicily. And we've talked before about the mafia because it came from Sicily. And my question as an Italian American was, why did that happen? Because I think I should know about that. And I'm embarrassed about that. And I care about justice and law. And so what was it about Sicily that gave rise to the mafia? And of course, there's all these derogatory stereotypes. They're not true. What really I learned in my research is that there was these economic conditions, that the law was so corrupted that it served only noble men. Of course, you don't even say noble people, noble men, right? Not women, couldn't even vote. Normal people, regular non-noble people couldn't even buy land. So all of the laws were, and Sicily was colonized over and over again. It was the world's island is what it's kind of called. The history of Sicily, I would suggest to you, is the history of the world entire, because you see colonization after colonization and how a community, an indigenous community, reacts to that. And what happens legally is that the laws favor the colonizers because the colonizers make the laws, and the law favors the rich people, and there is no justice for everybody or the common person. What the mafia arises to take advantage of that. and the lassitude in the law and the lassitude of its enforcement, and becomes a form, establishes its own code, which is not legal, is actually extra legal, but it's its own code. What I want to focus on is what I learned about this secret society, which is called the Beati Paoli, or the Blessed Society of St. Paul. Now, first, let me tell you, there's some known about this society, but not a lot, and it doesn't all agree. So I did the research and took the weight of the authority and put it into the story. Now, what this society did, the Beati Paoli, who were they? They were a group of noblemen, but they were not corrupt noblemen. They were people who cared about justice, and they came from different avocations too. Not all the nobility had jobs, but there would be lawyers, they would be professors, they would be doctors, and they would meet, and they formed a secret society. And what was the purpose of the society? The purpose of the society was to get justice for the common man. Can you even believe that happened? It's true. It is well documented. Well, it's not well documented. It is documented that the Beati Paoli met in the church that I found. It's on the piazza of Beati Paoli. It's I showed you in the film what it looks like. I want to take a moment to show you the entrance if you didn't catch it, because it was such a rainy day and you could hardly see. And also, did my hair look like crap or what? But here is the entrance. It's very humble. It's not a working church. They just had the doors open that day, and there was no other tourists. Very few people even know about this secret society. I'm not even sure why it was open to go in. There was no one around. And then so Laura and I, being like the pushy broads we are, we were like, well, this is the church. I know it's on my research. Let's go in. And we did. And then at some point, somebody caught up with us, who I think was just some random guy. It wasn't like a guard or anything. But so you go in these doors, and here's what you see inside. I'll take a moment to show you, because even though it's weird when you look in the video, like you see folding chairs when you come in, that's not beautiful or inspiring or anything like that. But it's like a lot of things in Sicily. It's real. Like you go in and you see this incredibly ornate ceiling with this beautiful, as I say, it's an apricot. It's a very lovely pastel, and it's in pretty good condition. It's not a bad condition, with the frescoes on the wall and the altar up at the top. So what my research showed me is that since the Beati Paoli met in this church at night in secret. Now, some of the reports say that they actually wore black hoods and went hooded through the streets, which sounded very cool and dramatic, but I couldn't find a lot of substantiation about that. And I think, since I'm writing historical fiction, and also I do it with my legal thrillers too, it all has to be real. I'm not making up facts that I'm not sure about, right? There's fiction, but the history is absolutely dead on accurate, and I stand on that. So I couldn't really prove that they walked through the streets in cloaks, so I said, okay, we don't need the cloaks. But I do have a character, and his name is Gaetano. I think you hear in the my voiceover, me say Manfredi. At some point I thought about naming him that. I didn't have that name then. And someday we'll talk about character names, because that's really interesting. But the bottom line is that the Beati Paoli met in the tunnel underneath this church, because under Sicily, just like under Rome and lots of places in Europe, there's catacombs that have been there from the Punic times. There are, and especially in Palermo, there are tunnels built by the Arabs and the Normans. They're irrigation tunnels, and there really is a whole network of underground things. And can you imagine how great it is to figure that out when you're me and you go, well, here's this lawless time in Sicily, right? It's all about the mafia, and they're taking advantage of these peasants, and the police do nothing for the peasants. And who fights for the peasants? There actually is somebody. It's the Beati Paoli. They fight for justice. They're common men who band together, and they meet on some kind of basis, and they take up the most local cause, and the one dearest to their heart. In fact, their motto says something like, our justice is written not on any charter, but in our hearts. They're do-gooders, and they do good. And if you're trying to write a novel, this is me taking you behind the scenes in the writing a little bit. You have an antagonist like the mafia. Well, you need a protagonist like the Beati Paoli, right? There's good versus evil. And what I really like to do in Loyalty, which also happens in The Godfather a little bit, is that the focus is on, you start with the mafia. You start with a guy named Franco, and you're going to see his rise to power, to being the first mafia family in Sicily. And at the same time, you're going to meet a guy, Gaetano, who is also driven by a belief and a code. His code and belief happens to be faith. He is devoutly Catholic. He believes in the doctrine of St. Paul and all of St. Paul's teachings, which he has memorized. It makes him a natural to join something like the Blessed Society of St. Paul. He's a lawyer, and he is, as I think I've mentioned in previous things, the first, I'm not giving anything away, the first chapter in Loyalty, a boy is kidnapped. Well, as soon as Gaetano of the Beati Paoli finds out about that, he is going to find that boy because he is furious that the boy was taken, that such lawlessness would occur on the sacred festival of Santa Rosalia, as we talked about last time, at the very center of Palermo, the Quattro Canti. And so what Loyalty ends up being is, I hope, a really big epic about good versus evil, that it's embodied in real people. Because that's what I really love looking at. You know, my books are about justice, but it's not some lofty idea of justice. And you know me now. How lofty am I? I'm not lofty. Like, I'm the lady who will say to the cop coming to the car, did I do anything wrong? Because that's like not possible. I never do anything wrong. But the bottom line is, the point about justice and law is that you have to understand how it impacts people and how it impacts people over time, so that it's different today and here as it was in Sicily, in Palermo, in the 17 and the 1800s, which is when Loyalty takes place in the 1800s. I wanted you to understand something about that. And so to understand that, you get to see a character like Gaetano, who really in some ways is the hero of this book. He's flawed, he makes mistakes, but he is trying to work for the public good, which, if you know anything about St. Paul, and when you read the book, you will, through his eyes, because we are another way to characterize a character. For example, this is a little trade secret for those of you who are writing. I like to think about, who do they admire? You can tell a reader something about a character by just thinking about who that person looks up to. Who do I look up to? Who do you look up to? It says something about who you are. Gaetano looks up to St. Paul. He tries his very best to behave and conduct his life in a moral and just manner. Can he? In Sicily, at the time of the mafia? That's the question Loyalty wants to answer. So that's the most interesting thing I learned in all of my research, finding this secret society, putting it in the book, and having its hero represent them. It was like inspiring. It was like adventures, like the Avengers, only like Sicilian. And the funny part of this is interesting is that, of course, Sicilian mobsters, real Sicilian mobsters, modern day Sicilian mobsters, have learned about the Beati Paoli, and they know of this story, and they claim that they are the ancestors of the Beati Paoli. They fight for the common man. And if you do any research at all, or even if you watch The Godfather only once, although how can you only watch it once? You come to know that the mafia is not that. And the heroes are the people who fight for justice at risk of their own life, like in Loyalty, and despite all odds, do the right thing and are loyal to a code that is just and honorable. Okay. Well, that's the serious part of our show. Now to move to what's next is, I got a really wonderful review. This is where I tell you what a dork I am, because, Loyalty goes out for early reviews. We don't get to read it, normal people, but it goes to the trade press. I got a starred review in Booklist, and that makes me so happy. What is a starred review? This is where you find out what a dork I am, because not only will I almost start crying to a cop who wants to give me a ticket, but doesn't, was that I care about what everybody thinks about my books. I am not one of these authors who writes for myself. I write to please myself, but I want to know how people feel about it. And I pray they love it. My early reviews of that are an example. They give me the hint. How's it going, kid? What's your report card? That's how I get my report card in the paper. Booklist is a wonderful magazine that librarians write, and it's for librarians. So when they say something that's really great, I'm so happy. So even at my advanced dotage, I'm still happy to have a gold star, and I got one. Let me read to you about this review. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It's big and long. Look at that. All good, but does tell some of the plot, which I'm not going to do. But I'll read you the nice quotes that made me so happy. Scottolini brings 19th century Sicily alive in this historical thriller with fairy tale themes, revenge quests, and compelling heroes, that's Gaetano, reminiscent of William Goldman's The Princess Bride. I have to tell you, I was so excited when I saw that because, first of all, I love The Princess Bride. And there are elements in this that I would say are not fairy tale, are more fable, are more fabulistic. Because you're writing about a time that there was these things we're talking about, great fable themes, destiny, loyalty, religion, all sorts of different types of religions. And there is an adventure. It's really a fast moving adventure story. So I was so happy that this amazing review said that. And then I'll read the last sentence and then we'll talk about ice cream. Every scene is a full sensory experience as Scottolini weaves lemon-scented breezes, the ocean sounds, and the sun-baked piazza stones into a timeless, tragedy-strewn story of love, power, and redemption. That's what I was going for! History fans will appreciate the novel's well-researched foundation, especially concerning the origins of the Sicilian Mafia, which is what I'm telling you now, and early mental health institutions, and we'll talk about that in a later video. So, oh, wow. I got that 2 days before the new year, and I'm having already the best new year ever. So I was really, really happy about that. I wanted to share that with you, but I am very, very grateful to you. You know, I like to joke around on these things, but New Year's, I have to tell you that I wake up grateful every day. I do. I am grateful for my life. I worked so hard to get to be an author. And that doesn't happen without your support every day for 33 years, over 30 books. At whatever I write, I try my best. And you guys are so loyal, honestly, to support me in that. And I will always give you a really great book. That's my main job. But I really, really want you to know how much I appreciate your support and your loyalty and your love. This is going to be a wonderful, wonderful year. I just know it. And I'll look forward to seeing you every Monday night. But until then, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you guys. And I'll see you next Monday night. Take care. Bye-bye.